Hi, Jack. How are you? My name is Isaiah, and it's really an honor to do this for you. Trudy has been speaking to me about the great work that you have been doing, and here's my input to see how I can help you out as best way possible. I had looked forward at some point in being able to come to Minnesota and possibly training you and other people and seeing how much I can impart into you so that you can take that knowledge and then run with it and then make the best of where you are. Filmmaking is exciting, and in this modern times especially, you cannot do anything without a camera. The focus that you would always have to remember is the fact that you have to tell the story of your client as best possible. You are tasked with the job of standing behind that camera and possibly helping them tell that story. So from watching or reading their briefs, their script, helping them to direct, making sure that the sets where they are speak volumes in terms of relating to the content message that they're trying to get out to the audience. Your job is just not being a cameraman, it's actually more than that. So I thought I'd help you with the little practicals that I have over the years of my experience. I think I've been in the industry now, this is my 27th year, and I've just been going and going, and I have worked on several genres of work. So we're talking about commercials, that's infomercials, documentaries, TV stuff, motion picture. I worked on the behind the scenes of James Bond Skyfall, the London unit here, and those are one of the big experiences that I ever had because I worked with larger crews, even though I was filming the behind the scenes. I've done short films and feature films for both corporate clients, personal clients, and on the biggest scale, you now come down to doing probably factual work where I have worked also in the dominion of, say for example, church, or even in the news media, where I have also freelanced with the BBC. That's the British Broadcasting Corporation. I have worked also in America. I filmed with National Geographic. I worked with Disney as a freelancer. And so, it goes on. And the more you do things like this, what it does is it opens you to more experiences. It challenges you. And every variation of genre that you find yourself in requires a different challenge and a different approach. I know that you're going to be filming Laura as you get through. And I want to be able to sell to you my experience by helping you along coastlines where you might come across certain challenges. One of the fundamental things I always tell people when you get into filming is understanding the kind of camera that you use. Right now I am filming this with a Blackmagic Cinema Pocket 4K camera. So it's a cinematic camera, and that camera allows me to push it beyond its remits, push it beyond its limits, and get the best out of it. The lenses I use are few and far between, but I use a specific collection of lenses which are similarly what we call cinematic lenses. Cinematic lenses are designed specifically for cinematic motion picture. We can also use still photography lenses, and I will demonstrate a few of them for you as I go along. In filming your work with Trudy, with Laura, I believe that there are exceptionally more things that you can improve upon from what I saw. Your composition largely plays a whole lot. Sound, audio plays an incredible lot. It's pointless having a very good motion picture, but the audio is just completely, out of whack. And when your audio does not meet up in conformity with the kind of picture that you've shot, what you end up getting is your audience just switching off because there's just nothing to listen to. So I hope with the tips that I'm going to be able to share with you, you'll be able to make best to improve upon what you have already, and you'll be able to take it to another level where you challenge yourself. One of the things I always encourage filmmakers to do, or videographers in this case, or camera operators, is get on your camera. It could be a DSLR, it could be a Micro Four Thirds camera, it could be a point and shoot, it could be a cinema camera. Just pick up your camera and get up and take yourself into more challenging environments and try your best to shoot different things. You would find out that every scenario requires a different approach. The way you would shoot indoors, the lighting system, as you would find right now, is completely different from the same kind of lighting system that you will meet on the outdoors. So on the outdoors, remember, you've got your day and you've got your night. And every scenario dictates something entirely different to the sense of the camera to which you are filming with. Remember, the power of what you deliver is based on the knowledge of how much you know your camera equipment. You want to be able to understand your ISO. The larger the number of your ISO, the more light you're sending right into the center of your camera. Your aperture, your f-stops, the lower the number of the f-stop for the kind of cinema or DSLR stills photography lens you have, the more amount of light that lens allows to travel through its blades all the way to the center of the camera, where it then forms the picture. And so most times it is often appropriate to get these kind of lenses with low f-stop numbers. I'm talking about probably from f2.8 to f1.8, 1.4, 1.2. They are more expensive as you go lower. But remember, you're paying for the quality of the amount of light that these lenses allow, so that subjectively, when you're trying to film, you do not end up having a higher ISO, which introduces more grain into your picture, as opposed to having glass, which already allows sufficient light, wherein then you can get a balance, a fair balance between your ISO, probably 400, 800 base ISOs, depends on what kind of camera it is you have. The base ISO here on my camera is between 400, 800 and 1250. That only is applicable depending on the scenarios I'm in, the lighting conditions I am in, and also the kind of lens that I have attached to the camera. Right now, the camera that is filming me is called a Meike Cine lens. It's a T25, it's a 25mm Cine lens, but it's a micro four thirds. And this is an example of a micro four thirds lens. So I've got a 16mm on there, and this is its big brother here, which is a 25mm. And I intentionally opened this so that you have an idea what the base point of it is. So this is a micro four thirds mount, and that's what's mounted into micro four thirds cameras. On the other hand, I have other lenses which I use for the application of a wider environment. So if I get into somewhere and I want to be able to tell a picture and have as much information in there, I need a lens that is going to be suitably wide enough. And this is one of my favorites. It's a Tokina 11-16, but this is an EF mount. And normally an EF mount will not fit onto a micro four thirds camera. But if you have a Canon DSLR or Nikon DSLR, for example, you could also have adapters for the other camera manufacturers that are not on the same ecosystem as any kind of mounts you have. So an EF mount, for example, I use what's called an adapter. So this is a Viltrox adapter, and I have also got a Metabones adapter, which is an EF to a micro four thirds mount. And this allows me to simply just take a lens that is an EF, attach it to that adapter, and then unscrew the adapter and then connect it directly into my camera, which then allows me to utilize the width of this camera. Now remember, when you use cameras like that, these widths are multiplied by both the aperture and the relative distance to the lens itself. That's a story for another day. I want to be able to tell you a couple of things that I think you can achieve. I have started to film for Miss Trudy, and we've just had to come to a temporal halt right now because of the raging pandemic, and it's my prayer that this lifts off us all, and that we can start to get ourselves back into a place of normalcy. I filmed her with 3 cameras, and what I did was to be able to get her on a wide shot, which is where this lens, the Tokina 11-16, came in. The wide shot is always going to be your safety shot. It is the shot that tells the entire story. And then I was able to create a left and a right side, which were the secondary shots, so that we could see the angle to the board where she was writing from. I have the left shot, which we will have gone to from time to time if for some reason she chose to face the direction that was akin to the direction of the leftward camera. But in more often circumstances, when she wrote, I noticed that being that she's right-handed, she wrote this way towards the board, which allowed the right-hand camera to be able to catch as much of the board. So what I ended up doing was I put a lens like this, which was the 25mm, and was close enough to be able to see that we got the majority of the frame of the board, which is about, I think, 3/4 of the frame, with Miss Trudy inside there, and I was able to visually represent her. One thing you need to notice that when you are making motion picture, you're not just making the motion picture for yourself, but you're clearly making the motion picture in regards to the audience that is going to watch it. There's a rule of thumb that we say in the film world where if your audience does not connect with your project or your gig or whatever you shoot in the first 30 seconds, then be rest assured you've lost them. That means there's something you've not done right and you need to explore it, you need to find it out, and you need to be able to make sure you do not repeat that mistake again. And one of the things that we find out relatively is angles play a huge part in trying to grab the attention of your audience. I also use a zoom lens, and this is what we call a zoom lens right here. So this is one of my, this is a very, very common staple. It's not cheap, but it's not too expensive. This is a Sigma 70-200, and almost every filmmaker has one of these. You find them in Tamron, you find them in Canon, and I think the name brands tend to be more expensive. This is a 2.8 all round. So from 70 all the way to 200, it's a 2.8. And so that's a great aperture that allows me to capture my subjects from a very, very, very far distance, but make them very close. Also, I can shoot very close range with this, and then I begin to create the separation of the subject matter from the rest of what's going on in the background. So this then encourages a lot of depth of field. I know people talk about a lot of depth of field in their works, but I want you to understand that there's a place where depth of field becomes abused because then it falls out of what it's supposed to do, and then it loses the engagement that it's supposed to have. So these lenses, in my opinion, I use sparingly, or if I end up in an environment, say for example, I was shooting in the NBA or I was shooting a sports event, then this lens will definitely come in handy because I want to be able to approach my subject matter from a distance without being in the face of the subject matter, but being able to get as much information as possible. Another lens that I think is a great staple that you should always have is what we call the Nifty 50. This is my Sigma 50 mil, and this is also another EF mount. It's electronic, so it's both manual and automatic at the same time, which allows the camera to perform certain functions when it's in its automatic mode. Now, the automatic mode is just basically the autofocus, and focus is an extremely important relative proponent of filmmaking. If you get your focus wrong, you're going to get a lot of things wrong. And so people learn to work with the focus options that make best quality use for them. Being a professional, I'm working very, very strongly in the field of feature film, motion picture, documentaries, and stuff on the move. I have perfected the art of working manual focus. I think most pros that you will come across will tell you that they have always been used to working in that kind of environment. But technology also makes focusing extremely important and easy. And I don't see a reason why you should not take advantage of that. The reason why people like myself or pros end up using manual focus is because we want the focus to be represented on the very matter or the subject principle that we are telling the story point from. So we dictate what we want the camera to do as opposed to the camera telling us what we want it to do. But I believe that as you advance in what you do, you will learn the different dynamics of how to apply your focus, when to use your focus. Sometimes you might have a focus puller who works with you, and it will be their job to critically sit down there with a monitor like this, for example, and maybe they have what we call wireless tethering. This is my Hollyline Mars 400S, and what that allows is this is connected, for example, to the camera, and then the camera sends another relay feed to this monitor. So when that is connected, then you have a focus puller who has the focus wheel, as this is, and their job is to look at everything in frame and focus it while you concentrate on filming. Now that's another level of filmmaking, and I think that as you get to that point in stage, it will have been over the amount of times that you've learned to practice and, you know, have, as they say, get your groove on, you know what I mean? So I'm very sure eventually you will get yourself to that place where you start working in that position. Audio is extremely important, and I believe that while the cameras offer you sufficient audio, audio can be grasped in so many ways, and you've got to be able to control. I beg your pardon. You got to be able to control how you get audio into the camera. Right now I'm speaking with you about using a lapel microphone, and I did this to demonstrate how this works into camera. Oftentimes using the camera audio is not the most professional or the best, as we call it scratch sound. But when you use another element to send your audio into your camera, then you're applying a resource of professional sound, which gives your picture a more professional polish. Now, I put some systems here. This is a lapel microphone, as you can see, and I think this cost me almost about $200. And there's specific kind of lapel microphones that you can have. There are very many cheap ones around. There's some average price ones, and they're very expensive ones. Now, another set of wireless systems which I use, for example, are these Rode Wireless Go systems, which allow you to just take the output of this where it is, connect it into your camera's input, and then you have the microphone here, for example, and you can just literally have this attached to your talent. And when you fix that to the talent, you can then measure the amount of audio that is traveling in. Sometimes if you want to hide this, maybe because it's too loud, you can then get a lapel microphone which goes literally in there, and then you can cable up your talent and then have the microphone hidden wherever you want it. And then you would find out that you have much more higher fidelity audio that is at a greater frequency than what the camera would allow you in. So this is another example of how you can allow audio in. Another example is the very professional output, which a lot of us like myself are used to, and which is sending, I've got the system exactly like this on me, and this is a Sennheiser E3 wireless system. It's an EW100 G3 wireless system, and this is an industry standard also. And this allows you to do so much because of the flexibility that it gives you in terms of the channels that you have. So something I do on a probable gig like what you're doing with Laura will be to get yourself an audio mixer. Probably, I've got this connected to my system, but I will just show it to you quickly so you have an idea of what it looks like. So this is a mixer here. This is a very small one over here. And that small mixer is running itself into my tabletop mixer over here, which goes into the studio speakers I have in my studio. So I've got a 2.1 surround system. So left and right channel, and then I've got a subwoofer just right under my table. But you get the essence of how to make professional audio come into your camera and begin to give your work a more professional sound, a more professional approach, and a more defined look. Lighting. Lighting is extremely important, and never take lighting for granted, because lighting determines the difference between a good picture and a poorly put together set. And it's very easy for your audience to lose interest if lighting does not fit the subject matter that is being portrayed. While I was filming for Miss Trude, we used 3 of these, and they are positioned in tandem to making sure that there's efficient white balancing. This is an LED light, but it's a bicolor light. And by bicolor, I mean this can go from warm to exceedingly fluorescent kind of light, like you have the white light over here. And sometimes you want to be able to measure your light in kelvins, if not most times in Kelvin. We're talking about, I think this goes from 3400 Kelvin all the way to 6400 Kelvin. It'll be nice if you have a light meter eventually. And normally I would say you can get things like that from your iPhone or your Samsung cell phone, well, more or less your cell phone. If you can get these kind of lights, this kind of apps on your cell phone which measure light, this will be a very good way for you to begin to understand how to measure light, the distance from the subject and to the lens, and how to get very good imagery, especially when you come to the place of editing. Editing is a completely different story. I had a look at the video that was sent to me where you're going to be filming on Saturday, and where and how I want to encourage you is to be able to get what's called the sweet spot of your filming. I know that Laura is going to be angled, probably with a board, and she's going to have kids sitting around. One thing you want to do is to get a camera that is fixed on her and the board, making sure that you can see everything that she is doing. You don't necessarily need to get the reaction of the children, but it will be good that if you could catch them from time to time, that will be great. But I would only advise you do that if you had a secondary camera. If you don't and you're going to use a one camera system, I would also advise you to get as wide a lens as possible. This then will allow you in editing to be able to crop either close or to get certain frames that you believe are important to the way Laura is exhibiting her teaching. There's a lot I'd like to say, but I am very, very sure that you're going to maximize what you have. One thing I want you to also take out of this is when you're filming for her, make sure you have a set of professional headphones. I mean, I keep almost about 3 or 4 professional headphones in the studio here, and even on the camera that I'm speaking to you with is another professional headphone that is connected to it. So for example, I use industry standard headphones. So this is an Audio-Technica headphone kit right over here. And these are one of the greatest headphones that I own. And you could either have this connected directly to the camera so you can hear what's coming out of it, or in the case where you're using a mixer, like I showed you earlier on, you plug this into the headphone output of the mixer, and then after tuning the microphone on the channel track that you have it on, you can hear what exactly is being sent from that mixer directly into the camera. So this is one of the many headphones I own, and another one that I have is my Beyerdynamic. I'm sure you're wondering, why does he have 2 headphones and there's another one on the floor, it's another Beyerdynamic also. And I'm sure you're asking yourself, why, and why does this look different from the other one? These are called closed back headphones, and what this does is it locks, blocks, eliminates any sound on the outside while you have the listening experience, and therefore it allows you to have critical listening. And in critical listening, you can pick hisses, whooshes, bops, spills, plosives, and all that kind of stuff, and you can eliminate them via however it is you are recording into your camera. I want you to be very careful and observant of miking your talent in such a way that when they speak, you can hear them properly without hearing the ambience in the room. Ambience tends to destroy a lot of audio recordings, and it's best to make sure that you get a microphone system that is dedicated to the task, which would not let you down, and which over a period of time you will get to learn and understand and effectively deliver the kind of output that it's supposed to give. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I could always advise and encourage you and say that another place that you could always make sure you encourage yourself is by going on to YouTube, where you will find various kind of videos that would encourage you, teach you, advise you, and also enable you by letting you know the kind of dedicated kit that you're supposed to have. It will also increase and bolster your confidence what it is you use, because as you begin to do these, you will begin to become more comfortable. Your choices of lenses will be more narrowed down, and staple lenses and arsenals of lenses that I always ask people to make sure that they have, depending on the kind of work they do, is to have a wide angle lens, a prime lens, and a zoom lens. Let me repeat that. A prime lens and a zoom lens. And here's the difference. A prime lens are like these. This is a photo stills lens, but it's a prime lens and it's a 50 mil. So it's just one range, 50 mil. Here's another one, but this is a prime lens, but a cine lens. So this is dedicated for film. And so this is a 25 mil. And they're both single digit numbers. And so the focal length on this is 25 and the focal length on this is 50. So whatever you film is at that focal distance. Those are prime lenses. On the other hand, these are zoom lenses. So this is a zoom range of between 11 millimeters to 16 millimeters, while this is 700 to 200. And so the distance is the reason why these are called prime lenses. This is an f2.8, so that means from the 70 to the 200, it's the same aperture all the way around. This is also an f2.8, so from 11 to 16, it's the same f-stop all the way around. In the camera, you can then decide how much ISO you want to introduce by taking advantage of the great and unique f-stop which you have. Some other lenses introduce f-stops that go from 3.5, and 5.6 and above, but it all depends on how you manage, like I said, the environment where you're in and the amount of lighting that you have in there. I hope this has been helpful. Something I forgot to mention are the use of practical lights. And so, for example, you can decide that while you're filming your talent or your client, you want to be able to introduce lights that can be used to create more of a welcoming effect. You can have this in a softbox that throws that light down. You can have it right behind their back to create, some kind of sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? High quality. So if you notice, while this is on, and I switch this off right now for a minute, you notice that under my table here, if you had been paying attention, the light has been changing. I have got a light strip under my table, and that light changes from time to time because I have set that light to work with the ambience in my studio. So likewise, you can introduce what we call practicals. These are practicals, and what the practicals do is to encourage and build a sense of quality, professional quality. You've taken time to study. You could also use something like this to be able to shape what you have going on. So if I had that, for example, maybe from here, my talent is probably too dark. This makes my talent a bit brighter. If I want it from the top, it all depends. If I want it from the side, how do you intend to tell the story? Do I bring the practical like this also to then create a different kind of balance? So yes, let's try something like this. So you need to be able to get yourself out there and experiment with what you have. Don't limit what you can do and never think you can't do it. You can take the most simple things around you, like a lamp, for example, and put the lamp in the right spot to be able to just get the kind of effect that you're looking for. And now for me, this light can change. And so I can change the colors. This is a green one. I can go to a white one. I can also go to a red one. It all depends on the level of imagination that you have. So never be afraid to experiment, because it is your job to understand your camera and what your client wants and how to best make sure you can deliver and give them a happy experience. I hope this has helped.